Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into something that honestly sounds kind of dry, but it catches so many successful practice owners off guard.
Right.
We're talking about the bureaucratic price of growth. Specifically, if you run, say, a physical therapy or counseling clinic, and you're thinking about restructuring, maybe moving, merging,
Yeah.
you could be about to step on a landmine involving your Type 2 National Provider Identifier, your NPI.
Yeah.
And ignoring it? Well, the sources say that pretty much guarantees financial trouble.
It really is one of those catch-22s in healthcare finance, isn't it? You do all the hard work, you grow the practice, it's successful.
Right.
But then maybe you change the legal structure just slightly, and suddenly, if that change isn't perfectly mirrored across like multiple federal and payer systems, your claims just stop, dead halt.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then. We're looking at the research you sent over to pinpoint exactly which events trigger these mandatory NPI actions.
And crucially, why missing even one deadline leads straight to, well, claim denials, audits, and these really painful gaps in revenue.
So before we dive in too deep, let's just make sure everyone listening is clear on what this Type 2 NPI actually is. Because I know people mix it up with their individual provider number all the time.
Absolutely. Super important distinction. The Type 2 NPI, that's for the business entity, the clinic, the group practice, whatever it is.
The organization itself.
Exactly. Think of it like its official ID. And it validates three really critical things. The legal business name.
Okay.
Your tax ID, that's the employer identification number, the EIN.
Right.
And the primary practice location. Now, if a payer goes to check a claim and finds any mismatch, even a small one, between their records and what's on that Type 2 NPI,
The system flags it.
instantly, the whole thing just freezes up. That data mismatch, you know, that's the core problem, the compliance trap we really need to help people avoid.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Okay.
So the first really big takeaway from the sources seems to be about timing. There's a deadline involved.
Oh, definitely. CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, they basically start a stopwatch the moment certain changes happen. And you've only got 30 days.
30 days. That's not a lot of time for busy clinics.
It really isn't. And it's non-negotiable. Within 30 days of any change to your practice location, your official business name, the ownership structure, or critically, that tax ID, you have to update your NPI record.
Okay, 30 days to update. But you mentioned earlier, sometimes an update isn't enough.
Exactly. And this is the nuance that trips, just so many practices up. Some changes, yeah, you just log in, update the info, done. But others require you to completely ditch your old Type 2 NPI.
Throw it out.
Yep. And apply for a brand new one. And that forces you into a full re-enrollment or re-credentialing process with every single insurance payer you work with. It's painful.
Okay, whoa. So that's the critical distinction. Let's draw that line clearly. What kind of changes demand a completely new NPI and this whole re-enrollment hassle? Because that sounds like where the major delays kick in.
That's right. It happens when the underlying legal entity itself changes fundamentally.
So like the legal identity of the business.
Precisely. The number one trigger is a legal structure change. So imagine you've got a successful clinic, maybe it's set up as an LLC, a limited liability company, and you decide, maybe for tax reasons or liability reasons, to convert it to a professional corporation, a PC.
Okay, but wait. If the clinic name stays the same, maybe the address is the same, the staff are the same, why does just changing from LLC to PC force a whole new NPI? That seems counterintuitive.
It does, but it comes down to how the IRS and the regulators see it. They view that new PC as a completely distinct legal person from the old LLC. So you're effectively dissolving the old company in the eyes of the law and creating a brand new one.
Yeah.
And that almost always means you have to get a new EIN, a new tax ID from the IRS.
And since the Type 2 NPI is tied directly to that specific tax ID.
Bingo. The second you have a new EIN or tax ID, for whatever reason, could be that restructure, could be a merger, an acquisition, your old Type 2 NPI is instantly invalid for that new entity. It just can't be used anymore.
It's like changing your social security number. Your old identity doesn't carry over. Okay. And that naturally leads to the next one. Ownership transfer or merger. If a new company buys the practice.
Same deal. Even if they keep the same name, same location, same therapists, the new legal owner, the new entity has to apply for its own Type 2 NPI and start that whole credentialing process over again.
Wow. Okay, so those are the big ones that force a completely new application.
Yeah.
What about the changes where you can just update the existing NPI, assuming you hit that 30-day window?
Right. There are definitely situations like that. The most common one is probably an address or location update.
Just moving the office.
Yeah. You move across town, maybe even just down down the hall to a different suite number. Your business name is the same, your EIN is the same, but that physical practice location has changed. You must report that new address in the NPI system, the NPPES database.
And the sources mentioned cases where things seemed fine for a bit after a move, but then payments just stopped.
Exactly, we see that. Maybe Medicare or another payer keeps paying for a month or two, system hasn't caught up, then boom, all payments halt. They flag you as non-compliant because the address on the claim doesn't match what they have linked to that NPI.
Okay, address changes. What else falls under update?
A clinic name or DBA change. Maybe you decide to rebrand, adopt a new Doing Business A's name. That new name has to match exactly what's associated with your EIN and now reflected in your NTI record. Payers use automated systems, Even slight differences, like adding or removing ink or PC if it wasn't there before, or a typo that can trigger an immediate denial flag. Precision matters.
It really sounds like it. Okay, then there's the growth scenario. Adding subparts, like satellite offices. This is where I've had the term subpart NPI, and honestly, it sounds a bit confusing.
Yeah, it can be. So think of it this way. Your main company still has its primary Type 2 NPI tied to its EIN, but maybe you open a second clinic location across town.
Right.
That second location is operating under the same legal entity, same tax ID, but it's a distinct place where services are delivered. Many payers, especially Medicare, often require what's called a subpart NPI for that location.
So it's like a secondary NPI linked to the main one?
Kinda. It's technically another Type 2 NPI, but it's used specifically to identify that separate service location under the umbrella of the main organization's tax ID. It helps payers accurately track where services happened.
And if you don't get one or don't register that location properly,
Then if you bill for services provided at that second unregistered office using just your main office's NPI, those claims are likely getting denied. The reason? Services rendered at an unauthorized or unregistered practice location. You have to register that subpart location, often getting that unique subpart NPI for it to bill cleanly.
Okay, so we've laid out the triggers, the structural changes, the moves, the name changes. Now let's talk about the so what, the real world pain, because you said this isn't just a slap on the wrist, it's immediate financial impact.
Yeah.
Why is the system so unforgiving?
Well, it really comes down to automated verification and, frankly, risk management for the payers. When a claim comes in, their system instantly cross-references the key identifiers, tax ID, NPI, location, against the file they have for you from credentialing.
Right.
If there's any mismatch, what the sources call a PT payer alert, the system doesn't, call you up to ask what's going on. It flags it as non-compliant, or potentially worse in their eyes, as possible fraud. And the default action: stop the payment. Full stop.
So the financial fallout really buckets into a few key areas. First, obviously, the immediate claim denials. Wrong address, wrong tax ID on the claim equals no money.
That's the first hit. Then second, it can trigger much deeper audits and scrutiny. A payer sees a discrepancy on one claim, and they might decide to go back and retroactively review months or even years of claims you've submitted under those credentials. That's a huge headache.
Oh man, yeah.
And the third bucket, which is often the one that really cripples a clinic's cash flow, especially if it involves needing a new NPI, is the lost revenue and delays. Because if your NPI is deemed invalid due to a structural change, you can't just fix it and resubmit.
You have to re-enroll.
You have to re-enroll, which means all the claims you're submitting right now are essentially frozen. They just sit there pending until that whole re-credentialing process, which can take months, is complete.
And the sources gave a pretty stark example of this, didn't they? A physical therapy clinic.
Yeah, that case study was pretty brutal. It was a PT clinic. They went through some kind of internal reorganization.
Okay.
But they crucially missed the step of updating their tax ID and their Type 2 NPI, first with the federal registry, and then critically, they didn't update their payers.
So what happened?
Catastrophe, basically, because their core legal identity, their NPI tax ID combo, was now invalid in the eyes of the payers. They had to completely stop billing.
Billing altogether.
Yes. And re-credential from scratch with 6 major insurance panels, all at the same time.
Wow. And how long did that take, that re-credentialing process?
The sources said it took 12 weeks, 3 months.
3 months of no income from those payers.
Pretty much. When they calculated the impact of all those denied claims, plus the claims just sitting there waiting for the new credentialing to be approved, that clinic faced a $35,000 revenue delay.
$35,000.
Yeah. And think about what that means operationally. That's not just a number on a spreadsheet. That's making payroll. That's paying rent. That's trying to keep your staff calm when the cash flow has suddenly dried up for 3 months.
All because of a paperwork update that got missed.
Exactly. The root cause was so simple, fundamentally. The details in the NPI registry didn't match what the payers had on file. That triggered the alerts, froze the pipeline. It just shows the cost of ignoring this compliance stuff. It's measured in real dollars and paychecks.
Okay, so we've seen the triggers. We've seen the potential $35,000 consequence. It's serious stuff. So if you're listening, maybe you're a clinic owner and you're planning a move or a restructure, what's the mandatory action plan? What absolutely has to happen?
Right. The first step, the absolute immediate priority, is dealing with the federal system. That means logging into the NPPE's portal.
NPPS, that's the National Plan and Provider Enumeration System.
Correct. That's the official federal database for all NPIs. You log in there. Now, if your change was relatively simple, like just a name change or an address update.
You just edit the existing record.
Exactly. You edit your existing Type 2 NPI record with the new information. But if it was one of those bigger changes, a new EIN because of a structure change or a complete ownership transfer,
Then you need a new NPI.
then you're submitting a completely new application for a Type 2 NPI. And remember, that 30-day clock from CMS, it starts ticking the moment that legal change officially happens. So step 1, NPE's portal, do not delay.
Okay, step 1, update or apply via NPPES within 30 days. Got it. Now, here's where you said the big misunderstanding happens, right? The one that leads to those huge delays.
Yes. Here's where it gets really interesting, or maybe frustrating, depending on your perspective. So many people, they do step 1. They update NTPES, they get their confirmation, they breathe a huge sigh of relief and think, okay, done. The federal government knows, so surely all the insurance companies will get the memo automatically.
Because it's a federal database, it seems logical they'd all pull from it.
It seems logical, but that assumption is probably the single most dangerous, costly mistake you can make in this process.
Wow.
The sources are crystal clear on this, and it's why we see clinics facing months of denials even after updating NPPES. Updating the NPI on the federal NPTES portal does not automatically notify your payers.
So it's just a registration. It doesn't trigger updates downstream.
Exactly. Think of it as registering your car with the DMV. That doesn't automatically update your car insurance policy, right? You have to call the insurance company separately.
Okay, that's a good analogy.
Same idea here. Payers manage their own credentialing files, their own provider databases. NPPES is just the federal list.
Which means the clinic owner has to then go and separately, individually inform every single payer they contract with about the change.
Painstakingly is the right word. You have to notify Medicare, usually through their PICO system. You have to notify state Medicaid, often through their specific portal. You need to update your centralized CAQH profile, which many commercial payers use. And then often you still have to log into the individual provider portals for each commercial carrier, your Blue Crosses, your United Healthcares, your Aetnas, and update your information directly with them too.
So even if your NPI is perfectly correct in the federal database, if you haven't done that second wave of notifications to the actual payers,
you're still going to get denials because their internal file, the one they use to process your claims, is outdated. It doesn't match the claim you just sent.
Okay, so the pro tip here, the way to actually stay compliant and keep the cash flowing, it's about getting everything aligned across multiple systems.
That's the key, system alignment. Payers are pretty sophisticated now. They don't just check one place. They often cross-reference information from multiple databases before they approve a payment.
So what needs to match up?
For true compliance, you need your updated business name, your tax ID, your location. All that core info needs to be identical across at least 4 critical areas. 1, your official NPI record in NPPS. 2, your CAQH profile. 3, your individual payer credentialing records the contracts and files they hold on you.
Okay.
And 4, sometimes even your own internal billing software setup, making sure it's generating claims with the absolute correct current information. If there's a mismatch anywhere in that 4-way check, you risk triggering a flag. It needs total synchronization.
That sounds like a significant amount of administrative work, especially during a time of change like a move or a merger.
It is. There's no sugarcoating it. But like you said, you weigh that administrative effort against a potential $35,000 hole in your revenue.
Right.
Suddenly, making sure those four systems are perfectly in sync doesn't look like optional bookkeeping. For a therapy clinic relying on insurance reimbursement, it's absolutely fundamental to survival. It's the bedrock of consistent payment.
The paperwork is basically the price you pay to keep the revenue flowing smoothly.
Well put. Ignoring it means you're essentially accepting the risk that the system will catch the discrepancy and turn off the tap, potentially for months. Hashtag tag outro.
Okay, so if we boil this all down, growing your practice is exciting, changing structure can make sense, moving can be necessary, but the moment you change that legal structure, that tax ID, or even just the physical location,
That 30-day clock starts.
right, immediate action needed in the NPPES portal, update or apply for new, but crucially, that's only step one.
Step 2, equally vital, is that separate, deliberate notification process to every single payer, Medicare, Medicaid, commercial carriers, updating CAQH, getting everything aligned.
That multi-system synchronization.
Exactly. And, that leads directly into a final thought, a challenge really for anyone listening who might be planning one of these changes.
Right.
We know the NPI change itself, updating NPPES, might only take a few days if you're on top of it. But that next step, the recredentialing with the payers, especially the big commercial ones, if a new NPI was required,
That's the part that takes time.
that's the part that can take anywhere from 30 days on the fast end to realistically sometimes 60 or even 90 days, 3 months.
Right.
So the question to really mull over is this. If you are planning a significant change or restructure, opening a major new location that requires new credentialing and, your ability to bill smoothly might be significantly hampered for potentially 1 to 3 months. How much of a revenue buffer, how much operational cash reserve do you realistically need to have set aside before you make that change, just to ensure you can keep the lights on, pay your staff, and avoid a catastrophic cash flow crisis during that inevitable waiting period?
That's a really practical and potentially sobering question to end on, something definitely worth planning for.
Absolutely critical planning.